What's going on, everybody? Back. About to show you some more of this Clash. Sitting there watching some ESPN First Take.
Because the nature of those sports, so many players on the field, so many variables, is that luck plays a bigger role. They're fundamentally probabilistic games. You can stack the deck in your favor. It doesn't mean you're going to win. The NBA is much less luck dependent than the NFL or Major League Baseball. We all know in the beginning of the season the teams that are going to be there, they're almost always there, and we usually also know who's going to ultimately win, and we're usually right about that. So when you stack the deck in the NBA, it feels especially like, what are we watching the regular season for, to some people like Stephen A. Smith, for example.
So in other words, you're acknowledging how it makes people feel, but at the same time, it's irrelevant, right? Because in other words, if we feel that way, if universally the world recognizes that Kevin Durant going to the Golden State Warriors has drastically tipped the balance, the hell with what everybody feels. We understand, according to Max Kellerman, we understand exactly how you feel. Max Kellerman feels your pain, but in the same breath, you shouldn't feel any pain at all. None at all whatsoever. None whatsoever. Come on now. The fact of the matter is Kevin Durant does not have a point here because he's evading the issue. Who the hell doesn't know he can't play for 30 teams? He's not 30 different people. He's not Stephen A. Smith playing, doing a Star Trek commercial where I'm all 9 characters for crying out loud with being helped by technology. That's not what goes on here. This dude is one player. He can only play for one team. We understand, generally speaking, or literally speaking, that you can't play for everybody. That's not the damn point. The point is that you are a top 3 player in the world. I think top 2. I think the only player that is better than Kevin Durant is LeBron James. This dude is on another level. Kevin Durant is a superstar. He is special. And he was on a team that was within 48 minutes of a berth to the NBA Finals. Not once, not twice, but 3 games. Didn't get it done in Game 5, choked in Game 6, wet the bed in Game 7 for most of it until he came on late, and it was too late. And then after the game, he's like, I'll see y'all soon. And a month later, he goes to the team that just beat him. That is what happened. And as a result, because of his greatness, he drastically tipped the balance of power. That's the issue of parity. We're not talking, generally speaking, like literally, oh my goodness, parity in the league where there's multiple teams. What we're saying is that you were on a team that could legitimately compete with the team you joined. And you decided to jump on that bandwagon instead of staying where you were. Now, it's laws. He didn't do anything wrong. He had the right to do what he did. But there is no denying that it was the weakest move we have ever seen from any superstar in any sport. And as a result, now that you are here, here's how he can make up for it. Be that superstar that you are. Outplay LeBron James. Be the best player on the Golden State Warriors championship squad, and maybe we'll get over it. But until that time, you riding the bandwagon, and that's not parity.
I want to address how you went at me after my point. Well, so I'm acknowledging how everyone feels about this. Number one, I don't care. I care about what I feel about it, Stephen A. And this is what I feel.
Well, you want to brought up everybody else.
There are always trade-offs. Well, there are always trade-offs. In life, there are trade-offs. It doesn't matter how awesome what you get is, you're giving up something else. It doesn't matter how awesome an opportunity, it closes doors on other opportunities. You're defining your reality with one set of choices, okay? So what I would prefer Kevin Durant say is, look, yes, me going to the Golden State Warriors, obviously in terms of balance of power, we've tipped it toward Golden State even more severely than it was. That's what you're giving up. You're giving up the illusion that someone else in the West can beat the Warriors. It's usually an illusion anyway, by the way. I mean, you and I have argued about the Knicks versus the Bulls. We really thought back then, oh, the Knicks can really win. Looking back at it, you realize that we weren't going to beat Jordan and Pippen and Grant and then Rodman and all those guys. But it felt like it's usually an illusion. The best team, the one that you really know is going to win, winds up winning. But in this case, you give up that illusion in the Western Conference. But what do you get back? You get back the Clash of the Titans rubber match End of the trilogy defines the era. Greatest sporting event we're going to see, at least most anticipated, in this calendar year at least, and one of the all-time most anticipated in the history of basketball, which is the greatest team sport there is. So
you don't
we
get
get
to say
a whole lot back. Now, you may say
you don't get to say that. Max doesn't get to say that.
The illusion. Why?
Because you were the one that just finished talking a few minutes ago about how drastically the difference is. So what collapse of the Titans? According to you, the Cavs ain't a Titan. Because the Golden State Warriors are head and shoulders. I was the one making the argument that the Cavs are legitimate concern. You were the one who said
what
there is
fight
something
did I compare it to?
What did you compare it
Smith, fight fan. What fight did I compare it to? The Rumble in the Jungle, Ali Foreman. Everyone thought Foreman was going to smash him, but you still had your eye on it because, after all, it's Muhammad Ali. Golden State's supposed to win, but you can't count out the Cavs because of LeBron James. He's supposed to lose, but if anyone can do it, it's him. There's drama there. But my point is this. Even if you would prefer the illusion or actual competition in the Western Conference to this, you're giving the illusion up or the actual competition up. This is what you're getting back, and what I would suggest to basketball fans is, now you're actually here, enjoy this. Don't worry about the journey now. Enjoy the result, because this is what we were waiting for.
No argument there. I mean, we're here now. Ain't no reason to poo-poo it now. This is what we've been waiting. You're absolutely right about that. That's the only point you made. You're absolutely right. We're here. I got that. But don't tell me about parity and all of this nonsense. Please, he knows you get the balance. That's why he went to stack the deck.
All right, we got to wrap it up because we are just getting started here on First Take.
He go for the seafood.
Coming up, we'll tell you what team is courting CP3 and if he can shake up the powers that be in the West. Plus, 2 years ago, Steph Curry was considered one of the 2 best players in the league. So what does he need to do this year to get back into that convo, and can he? We'll tell you.
Boy, they tripping talking about Steph Curry ain't one of the best players in the league. Steph Curry cold. All right. Well, no, we don't attack them Town Hall level 10s. Well, still not strong enough. And I'm not going up to Town Hall 10 until I get all my walls strong enough. So, yeah. All right. Whew. Man, my job search hasn't been going too well. I was thinking about making a fake resume. I know that's probably not the most ethical thing to do, but shit, I'm doing that shit. Alright, let's just do another attack. We need a 2-star. Ooh.
DC, and guess what? First take, they're every step of the way. It all starts in Oakland next Thursday, June 1st, from the Lake Chalet Bar and Grill. And when we're in Cleveland, we'll be at the Hofbräu House, and we'll have special guests and giveaways. First come, first serve. Doors open early, so get down there 5:30 a.m. Pacific time on the West Coast. Make sure you show up early, pack the house, and join us on the road for the finals. After Steph Curry led the Warriors to the title in 2015, there was talk about Curry in the conversation with LeBron as best player in the league. But when Steph had a chance to lead the Warriors to back-to-back titles, he came up small. In Game 7 last year, he missed 5 of 6 shots and only 3 in the fourth quarter. On that note, we're going to bring some willpower, casual willpower, to the discussion. Good to see you. Great job on filling in on Mike and Mike.
Hold it.
Thanks.
Hold it.
Thanks.
He's in denim. I like it.
That's just disrespectful.
Why?
You don't get to don't you ever show up on this show again without a blazer on. Do you understand me?
No.
I mean, you got a standard willpower now. You got a standard you got to live up to. You understand that?
I want you to understand something. You listening closely? What I'm doing here is a favor to you. At every moment, I have defiled myself further. I have not yet begun to defile myself, in the words of Doc Holliday in Tombstone. I have showed up with smoke. I have showed up with all kinds of accoutrements, and now I am intentionally dressing down to help you both out in this never-ending quest to beat me. Next thing you know, I might be showing up in some kind of MC Hammer pants or something. Who knows?
You didn't just say that. You didn't just say that.
We are going up.
You'll be defiled soon enough. Don't worry about it. You don't need to do it to yourself.
All right.
I'm a big fan of the denim look. I'll let you know.
Thanks.
I have quite a few denim
Thanks.
shirts. Stephen, I want to start with you on this one. If Curry and the Warriors win the rubber match, can he get himself back into the NBA top player discussion, Steph Curry?
It depends on how he performs. I mean, listen, a lot of times when people talk about how he performed, they talk about Game 7, but they also talk about the first 3 games in the NBA Finals. You're talking about a 2-time league MVP that walked into the NBA Finals last year. In the first 3 games, he dropped 11, 18, and 19. That was completely unacceptable. But then the following 3 games, he had 38, 25, and 30. I mean, the dude it's not like he disappeared. It wasn't until that Game 7. Now, there have been some talk about him not being 100%, and I think that's factually correct. And we saw his brother acknowledge that he clearly was not 100%. But you don't get to make those excuses because nobody else did it. And at the end of the day, he has to perform. You know, you got Kevin Durant coming to the team. He's a Nike dude. Steph Curry's an Under Armour dude. We've got a 2-time league MVP that wouldn't have been the NBA, the Finals MVP in either Finals had his team won. Well, he wasn't when they won the first time. Iguodala was that MVP. And then last year, he would not have been the MVP had they won, because that would have gone to Draymond Green, courtesy of 32, 15, and 7 in the Game 7. So in the end, what it comes down to is that Steph Curry's got to show up. He's got to perform. He's got to remind the world of what a superstar he is. He's still the greatest shooter that I've ever seen. He's still an all-star. He's still a spectacular player. Nobody's trying to poo-poo anything about him. But this is the biggest stage. And last year, considering how he performed, he does have some making up to do. I don't think he was god-awful the way people are trying to treat him, especially when he showed up in Games 4, 5, and 6. But nevertheless, that Game 7 and the first 3 games of the NBA Finals, he was relatively pedestrian, to say the least. He has some making up to do, and this is the biggest stage for him to do it, not just because it's the NBA Finals, not just because of his supporting cast, but also he's going up against a guy named LeBron James who tried to punk him in Game 6 of last year's NBA Finals.
Look,
Steph Curry was in the discussion for best player in the game. Remember the fish with the extra gill, Molly? Remember? The fish with the extra gill with the acid rain?
Time out. Is this
That's
story
right.
time?
Analogy now.
I love a good story time from
Well, I
Max.
can do quick story time.
Don't do
See,
it,
the way
please,
it
don't.
works with evolution, it's survival of the fittest, right? No, it's survival of the best adapted. The fish has a mutation, has an extra gill, it's good for nothing. Until acid rain comes, that filters acid rain. As it turns out, that's the fish that survives. And that's Steph
he's
Curry.
acid rain.
His handles
What are we
plus
talking
shot equal the extra gill. He is perfectly adapted for this NBA. So even last year, when it was like, not this past season, but the previous, when it was like, is he the best player in the NBA? We recognize that if that's true, it's kind of a cheat. The only reason he's the best player in the NBA is because it's this NBA. If it were any other NBA, he wouldn't be in that conversation. So he's already a little bit behind the 8 ball because intuitively we watch, obviously, LeBron, but also Durant because they're bigger, or Westbrook because he's more athletic, and we go, Steph isn't quite that really, but okay, in this NBA, he's perfectly adapted to take advantage of the rules. Maybe he is the best. And then he underperformed in the finals for the second consecutive year. So then you say, what would it take for him to get back into that conversation? Not simply being the best performer on the Warriors, because if he is, and let's say they roll the Cavs, what will be said about Steph, and maybe even I would say it, is, boy, when he's crewed up and he has overwhelming odds in his favor, he sure gets brave, right? Like, there's going to be that sense, too. In order for Steph to be back in the conversation, the Warriors have to be struggling. Clay has to go cold. Durant's not stepping up. Even Draymond somehow can't do enough, and they need heroics by Steph to win. And he comes through with those heroics. So he's not only the best on the team, but he comes through under pressure to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. If that happens, he'll be back in the conversation. Anything failing that, I don't think he will be.
Right. It's virtually impossible for Steph to reclaim that position in the debate. Virtually. The scenario has to line up exactly like you laid it out, Max, and then Steph averages 40 a game in the finals. The thing of it is, no one will be the hero of the Warriors. It's capped. The individual heroics and the accolades that go along with that on the Warriors side of the equation is virtually capped. They will share glory as a team, and perhaps that's the way it should be. Between KD and Steph and Clay and Draymond, it's almost impossible for one person to assert themselves over a 7-game series and say, we won because of this guy. This is the guy, and therefore elevate Steph into the debate with LeBron. Now, by the way, the real masochistic part of this is the tarnish, the hate will come individually. The glory will be shined on the team, and the tarnish will come individually. It'll be KD's fault. Stephen A's talked about he's gotten a pass up until now, and I agree with that, Stephen A. That's over this year. If they don't win, KD's pass is over, and he will get individual criticism like never before should the Warriors not win. So Steph will not be able to put himself back in the debate because no one on the Warriors can. And if I'm wrong about that, it'll most likely be KD that gets that individual accolades. He supplanted Steph as the man. And Stephen A., you brought up Nike Under Armour. There was a wonderful article on ESPN.com about a month ago from Ethan Sherwood-Strauss. It said, when KD signed with the Warriors, you know who celebrated? Nike. Because it diminished Under Armour's biggest star to second banana level. He's capped. He's capped by KD, and he's capped by the team environment. And that's not bad for the Warriors. It's just bad for Steph in this debate.
Well, Will, I want to address what you said because you make a good point about Steph Curry. I don't agree with your point when you say it's impossible for an individual to receive glory in the NBA Finals for the Golden State Warriors. Because I think KD has a chance. You have to remember something. KD has a chance because it's anticipated that at some point in time, he and LeBron James will be matching up against one another primarily. KD is 6'11", LeBron James 6'9". KD has a 7'6" wingspan, but LeBron James got like a 40-pound weight advantage. And, you know, ultimately they've been going at one another. They average 29 against one another. But KD comes across as a bit timid against LeBron James, particularly in waning moments. So what if KD turns around with all of this pressure on him, which he deserves, by the way, and this brother averages 40, and he's dropping like 15 in the fourth quarter, and it's him and LeBron going at it, And
What you
LeBron
talking about?
has absolutely no answer.
What you mean?
Whatsoever. Under those
Oh, that's retarded.
circumstances, improbable circumstances, that KD could be a hero.
Yeah, I think that's the exception. I think the most likely scenario is nobody, and then there's a window for payback for that guy.
That's like signing up for an
Most
AAV
likely you're right.
tournament.
Or Steph, KD can be a
Hey, he got scared. What you I mean? Shit, niggas get scared.
And I can tell you, Steph, the matchup is Kyrie Irving, and of everyone in this
Yeah.
series, who has the best reputation?
Seems
I was
stupid.
like, it's
But
not even an actual
and
like
the money on the
sport.
line, crunch time,
Hey.
Kyrie. And if
Impressive,
Steph
but
some
was like, I don't
some people
understand.
no, some people are different. Some people just don't like.
outperforms the season,
No, some people just don't know how to, block out what other people think of them and shit. And Lamar's one of them people. I'm not saying that's bad enough. I'm just saying, like, they say, most people don't like to, like, most people's number one fear is talking in front of, like, a crowd of people, and nothing wrong with what, I'm just saying, like, that just didn't make no sense. You sign up for the tournament to go fight, you drive your ass all the way fuck out there, and you don't even go over there to qualify, to say you here. Like, that don't make no damn sense. But he just got scared, But that's not the first time that's happened. That's happened plenty of times before, so I kind of expected it, to be honest. That's just how certain people are. Now, somebody like LeBron James, on the other hand, he rises to the occasion. Then again, LeBron James is the best basketball player on the planet, so... Wow, these attacks are something else. Basically, this whole builder's hut, you can tell it's solely a setup just for people to spend more money on gyms. For the simple fact, you only have one builder, so they expect people to be impatient on it. And what else was I trying to say? I don't know, I done forgot now. Oh, and you can't pick who you want to attack. It's a pure cutthroat money grab. But I mean, this whole game is a money grab, so ain't nothing wrong with that, I guess. I don't spend my gems. I prefer to keep my gems. Because that's your money. Save your money. No, I want to save my elixir for that upgrade. Let's do another attack. Ooh, back to first takers.
For them to win, that is a scenario whereby Steph can receive great, credit for the win, particularly if everyone else is cold. Otherwise, how does Steph get credit, really?
All right, Max with the last word. Willpower, you'll be back with us a little later in the show. Looking forward to that, as always.
With that shirt, get a jacket.
Sorry, buddy, I had to work someplace else this morning, but I
Well, it wouldn't
love
kill you to
this
put on a
show.
jacket.
I'm so glad to be
roll
back.
the bump. You know what that means. Kevin Love responds to Draymond Green. We'll tell you what he said. And Chris Paul could be on the move next season. Should he pull with Kevin Durant and create a super team somewhere? We will get into that next.
Boy, Chris Paul better get up out of the Clippers for his career just go down. Chris Paul probably got about 2, maybe 3 good years left. Maybe 3, and that's a big maybe, but a solid 2 more good years. Yeah. Ooh, them Wizards just totally fucked my attack. Nope. Oh, yeah, no, them Wizards just totally fucked my attack.
The Royals host the Tigers. And tomorrow we'll have 2 more games for you, starting with the Cardinals hosting the Dodgers. That's at 7 Eastern. Then it's Bryce Harper and the Nationals taking on the Giants, also available streaming live on the ESPN app. Meanwhile, in the association, the Spurs have their eyes on Chris Paul and are considering making a run at him, according to our Mark Stone. Meanwhile, lead sources are saying the Clippers aren't taking the threat of losing Paul lightly. Now, keep in mind, the Clippers can outbid any suitor for Paul. He's eligible for a 5-year deal worth an estimated $205 million from LA. Stephen A., if CP3 joins the Spurs, what impact will this really have on the Western Conference?
Nothing. Not much at all. They'll be good enough to get back to the Western Conference Finals, and then they'll go home. It'll be a big deal for CP3 because he's never played in the conference finals. And I happen to believe he is a great point guard and a great player. But he's undersized, you know, and he's not a top 5 player. When you're talking about super teams, you're talking about 2 of the top 5 players in the world being on the same squad. Kawhi Leonard may be that guy, but Chris Paul is not a top 5 player. He's a top 5 point guard, but he's not a top 5 player. He still has to go against Golden State with the arsenal that they have in play, because I'm told that both Steph Curry and Kevin Durant will end up staying in Golden State beyond this season. And so when you look at it from that perspective, what's he going to do? The San Antonio Spurs were in the conference finals without him. They lost in the conference finals without him. The same thing would likely happen again with him. That's really what the situation is right now. And the only thing I'd like to say other than that is that if CP3 were to leave the Clippers, that's not a good look for Doc Rivers. You can't have a CP3, your best player, because CP3 is clearly their best player. You can't have CP3 want to leave you when you're in a position to offer him $50 million more than anybody else can. And he still leaves you. That would not be a good look for Doc Rivers at all. That much I would say.
CP3, a lot of CP3 news out right now, including David Stern, the former commissioner, throwing Mitch Kupchak under the bus about that scuttled trade. Stern is painted as the villain there. I think he looks worse for really destroying Kupchak here than even Kupchak did. But Kupchak also looks terrible, because it turns out, according to Stern, had Kupchak not panicked, CP3 would have been a Laker, and then the whole, you know, recent history of the West could have been different. CP3, Kobe, Dwight Howard with maybe Phil Jackson as the coach. Maybe they still don't win a championship, but then the fortunes of the NBA, the outcomes change over several seasons. I thought that was big news. Then this is big news. Well, yeah, you never know. And then this is big news also. Look, Popovich with CP3 is a scary proposition. Because I always thought watching the Spurs, watching Tony Parker, boy, Parker looks like a Hall of Famer. And I used to think, what if he had a point guard like Chris Paul? You know, a guy who is a Hall of Famer wherever he is, and you give that to Popovich in that system with those guys. I think Chris Paul over-dribbling ends with Popovich. Anything you don't like about Chris Paul, there's not much not to like about him, ends with Popovich. Maybe he rubs certain teammates the wrong way. The way his leadership style can be abrasive. With the Spurs and Popovich, I believe all that gets fixed. And him and Kawhi would be a whole lot of. And LaMarcus Aldridge, I think, with Chris Paul, would be the best version of himself. The problem is, LaMarcus Aldridge is not a great defensive player. And when the Spurs were at their best, their big, first David Robinson, then both, and then Tim Duncan, was not only a great offensive player, but a great defensive player. And that made the Spurs a whole different kind of ballgame. If LaMarcus Aldridge was a great defensive player too, then I would say actually Chris Paul joining him and Kawhi Leonard and the Spurs under Popovich with a supporting cast that they'll put together, you know what? The Warriors might be in trouble, but that's not LaMarcus Aldridge. And so ultimately, they won't have enough. And this goes back to my earlier point about the NBA, Stephen A. This is a built-in advantage of the NBA, and it's also a disadvantage. The advantage, you know, trade-offs. As I said, the advantage is the winner wins. The best team wins. If you want to argue or quibble about all the time, most of the time, I'd say all the time, but the vast majority of the time, the best team wins. Because it's not a one and done like in the NCAA tournament. And it's not a fundamentally probabilistic game like football or baseball. A best of 7 in basketball, best team's going to win. And so what that does, it means that right now you and I can say with a fair degree of certainty, even if Chris Paul goes to the Spurs, they'll take us on a roller coaster ride. They might be up 2-1 at some point on the Warriors, but ultimately they ain't going to win a best of 7. And that detracts from the drama of the NBA somewhat, because it's more clear than in other sports who's the best. Well, that said, Chris Paul joining Kawhi brings them closer. It brings them closer.
One of the things that we have to discuss while we're doing this topic is that the question is being asked, what impact would Paul joining the Spurs have on the West? Well, it has a rippling impact, because then now we ask questions, what is Blake Griffin going to do? Remember, he has the option to opt out, look for a new deal, whether it's in Los Angeles or somewhere else. DeAndre Jordan will be able to do that next summer as well. And so you're talking about the Clippers and what's going to happen to them. And obviously those are formidable players, where they may not be great together. If you added them to some of these other rosters, who's to say what they'll be able to do? That's point number one. Point number two, my sources tell me something, Max. When I ask a question, because I'm very fond of Chris Paul. I'm very fond of him as a person. I'm very fond of him as a player. I think he's terrific in both regards. I'm a huge fan of his. But everybody is not. What they talk about with Chris Paul is that they say, excuse me, Stephen A., has he really, really gotten better? And I'm like, what are you talking about? They said, look at his skill set when he came into the league. He had this game. Where has he evolved? We look at Steph Curry, how he came into the league, and we look at how his skill sets have evolved. We look at Russell Westbrook. We say the same thing. We look at the modifications that James Harden made to his game, and we see there's an elevated level of play. When it comes to Chris Paul, because I was fighting with them about this. They were like, Stephen A., go back to the film. There's not much different about Chris Paul. The great player that he is, he always was. But the process of evolution has never taken place. He hasn't evolved as much as people would like. Then they point to friction within. They point to friction within the Clippers, and you can speak to this, Matt, because you was hosting the Afternoon Drive radio show in Los Angeles, where you got folks and they're saying his relationship with players should be better. They're saying stuff like this about him right now. I don't find that to be true because I find him to be an individual that has put guys in positions to win because his talents are surreal and he's a great point guard. But they say this kind of stuff about him. Right now they're saying this stuff.
Two things. Let me just comment on those two things real quick, Stephen A.
Sure.
One, the evolution of his skills. He's 2 feet tall. He's not even that fast, and he's one of the best players on earth. Where is there chance for evolution of his skills? He has such a great, well-rounded game. That's why I think Popovich. He can shoot, though. No, he can't shoot, and he can hit when you need him.
I agree. I'm just telling you what they're saying is he could have been more of a three-point mark.
I got you, and I think Popovich will cure whatever's left that ails him. There's not much, except, and here's the question. This may be the number one thing. The teams he plays on don't seem to play with joy. They don't seem to all be pulling in the same direction and playing for each other. And that comes down to personality, and that's much more difficult to address.
Yep. So the bottom line is that the Spurs essentially with CP3 still can't overtake that super team up north there in the West. When we come back, gentlemen, King James managed to beat the Warriors in the finals last season. So now that Golden State is the super team of all super teams, will he reach GOAT status?
Whoa.
LeBron's roadblock. Is Kevin Durant's legacy on the line this year, or is it even fair to talk about it yet? Stay tuned. Will Kane will join us for that conversation.
Hollywood. Oh, it's like that now?
I totally forgot to drop that golem. I cut up on that one. That probably would have been a 3-star if I didn't totally botch that attack. That was a horrible attack right there. Ooh, look at this base. Do not botch this attack. Is that a good movie?
Man, it's so far. I watched like an hour of it, man. These white people, this nigga, he should have known. He should have got the fuck out of Dallas. Don't ever let no white person hypnotize you, bro.
Oh, you said he should know. Damn.
Party and shit. Wasn't supposed to be no party. And then he just get there and now it's just a bunch of white people. They're like, why is all these white? Like, nah, y'all was planning on cooking a nigga or something.
Ooh.
Fuck out of like, how did you not know that? Like his girlfriend didn't tell him nothing about it. It's like a bunch of white people at this party. So I don't know what's gonna happen in the movie, but that should have just been a clue right there. Like, bitch, you didn't say shit about no damn party. These niggas finna hang me. Oh man, I'm in white people country.
You like, no.
And they got like these random black people that are just like, they servants and shit. Like, hell no.
Oh, back to first take.
Yeah, you are. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the First Take on this Memorial Day. Thank you so much for hanging with us. It is halftime. Molly Karam here with Stephen A. Smith, Matt Kellerman, and Will Kane. Stephen A., what's on your mind for hour number 2?
What's on my mind is my.
I gotta say, Molly, her hair is just, man, banging today.
On Mr. Kevin Durant, who has gotten exactly what he wanted. Him and his crew. I'll explain on my final take.
Plus, we make our finals picks. Very interested to hear what Mr. Stephen A. Smith has to say. I know what I'm going to say. You'll find out what we both have to say. Second hour first take right now.
The whole underdog thing is funny to me because, yeah, at the end of the day, we are defending our title and we're trying to repeat, which is so hard to do. But, no, I mean, I think we will use it as fuel. We will use it as motivation. But as far as the idea of like playing into it, you know, it's tough for me to say that is the case. I mean, I don't feel like we're underdogs. I think we match up well with them, and I think they say the same about us.
So even though Vegas has the Warriors heavy favorites, Kevin Love is not buying it. Will Kane, back here with us. Good to see you. Stephen, I want to start with you here. Is this a good thing that Kevin Love's saying this?
I love it personally. I mean, listen, some would say that it's not that wise because you got Draymond Green, who's going up against him, and he's been like kryptonite for Kevin Love. At least the last year's NBA Finals are indicative of anything. But I'm very proud of what I've seen from Kevin Love. Kevin Love has had to be a third wheel. Chris Bosh can speak to the adjustment, the difficulty of making that adjustment. And Kevin Love has been phenomenal in these playoffs as far as I'm concerned. I've seen him explode for plus 30 on several occasions. I mean, he's shooting very, very well from three-point range. I'm just looking at his three-point shots here throughout the series against Boston. There's only twice actually, that he shot less than 42.9% from three-point range. Actually, that was the lowest. Everything else, 44%, 53%, 60%, 66% from three-point range. His marksmanship is incredibly impressive. You're going to have to step out and guard him. As a result, that's going to pull Draymond Green away from the basket and leave Golden State to the devices of the JaVale McGee's or the Jaja Pajulias. And by the way, don't be surprised if Tristan Thompson can be a sleeper in this series, because who the hell is going to keep him off the board? JaVale McGee is a novice, and Jaja Pajulia is entirely too slow to stay with Tristan Thompson. So keep your mind on that, and keep your mind on Kevin Love in terms of his board activity as well. But the way that he has been shooting, understanding he is that third wheel, if Kevin Love continues to shoot this basketball the way that he has been shooting it, that can very well be the X factor that could propel Cleveland to another championship over the Golden State Warriors. So I like the fact that he has spoken up. He is not shying away from the challenge. He's not shying away from the responsibility that comes with that $113 million contract that he signed. He's a nice guy. He's a good person who I think has taken a lot of unnecessary heat. And it's nice to see him speak up for himself and his teammates, because it gives me the impression that he believes he's ready to back it up. And he will need to do that in order for the Cleveland Cavaliers to win this series.
What's up, Brandy?
This is great. this is great that Kevin Love is enunciating this exact thing. Because when you have the best player in the world on one team, and just you go to the playground, you got the best player in the park on one team. If that guy also has a crew, you think that team has a chance to win.
What you want to go outside, girl?
And the history of the NBA is that that's been precisely the case. Especially when the best player in the world is the best by the measure that LeBron is. No, he's not a typical best player in the world. He's a little bit better than the next best guy. He's way better than everybody. And he's crew deep on this Cavs team. Not just because of Kyrie and Kevin Love, but also because of, the devil's in the details. The way they revamped the bench. Darren Williams is your backup point guard now. The shooters everywhere. LeBron can play with the shooters. Kevin Love. Kevin Love's self-image, the way he views himself. Let's not forget, there was a time when he was in Minnesota, putting up those crazy numbers, where he was considered by many smart basketball observers, top 5 player maybe, a franchise player, one of the handful of players in the league worth way more than the max contract. And the question always with players who put up big numbers on bad or mediocre teams is, are those empty calorie numbers? Are those numbers empty calories or are they meaningful? For example, you brought up Chris Bosh, Stephen A. He went from Toronto to Miami, and his numbers went away. But those weren't empty calorie numbers. He was just as great a player, at least, on Miami as he was in Toronto. The numbers reflected his greatness in Toronto, the wins in Miami. But he was the same guy. He was still a great player. Bosh is great. Kevin Love went to Cleveland, and it was like, what? That looks like an empty calorie player now that we see him on a great team. He's not a great player anymore. And he's come into his own little by little, growing more comfortable. Remember when LeBron said, don't try to fit out, just fit in, all these things? Kevin Love is saying, with this comment, he's saying, I'm a great player. It's not just that it's LeBron, the greatest, and Kyrie's another great player, and I'm just kind of one of the crew. There's a big 3 here. And when the best player in the world has 2 other great players plus a crew, we match up with anyone. So I like that he enunciated what he did, and I think it reflects well in terms of how Kevin Love views himself.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to get much disagreement on this. What do we want? Want him to say, I don't really know if we can meet up with these guys. They're pretty tough over there. We want them to believe in themselves. You got to believe in yourself. You're going to win it. But I like it for another level, too. I like it for the angry, the insulted aspect of it. I mean, look, one of the formulas we've seen play out at this point in sports is us against the world works. Insult works. Seen it from Nick Saban. Him instilling that in his teams over and over. To some extent, Greg Popovich. And, of course, the Picasso of this technique, of this psychology, the locker room maestro of us against the world, Bill Belichick. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's true, right? It's ridiculous that the Patriots think somehow everyone is doubting them, but he makes them believe that. And so if the Warriors are, if the Cavs are insulted and they're like, you're making us the underdog, that's going to be hugely advantageous for the Cavs. They need to harness that. They need to use it. But I think this is interesting. On the other side of that equation, what are the Warriors thinking? Ryan Russillo has talked a lot about this. This is a team that choked away a 3-1 lead. And the first chance they got it, revenge, Christmas this past season, they lost to the Cavs again. So if the Warriors have an ounce of pride, they're doing the same thing. Everyone makes fun of us. We're a super team. We're not earning it. And we're the team that's choked away a 3-1 lead. So this sort of battle of the insulted ought to play out. And good for Kevin Love for A, feeling confident, and B, using this to his advantage.
Well, first of all, let me address.
And by the way, even the way the format, hold on real quick, Stephen A. Even the way the format breaks up could be good for the Warriors here because Cavs just steal 1 on the road. I mean, Warriors got to win those first 2 games. Cavs steal 1 on the road, and it's like, Warriors in trouble.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, even though we love what Kevin Love has had to say, and we have no problem with it, let's understand the potential detriment of his words.
What?
He has to go up against Draymond Green. And this is the same Kevin Love that you take away his Game 1 performance where he dropped 17. He scored 5 points in Game 2 last year's NBA Finals, didn't play in Game 3, came back, dropped 11 in Game 4, dropped 2 points in Game 5, 7 in Game 6, and 9 in Game 7. Even though he had 14 rebounds, was an absolute beast on the board, and that was definitely
But Stephen A., how does that fuel Draymond? What are you saying? Somehow Draymond will be like, yeah, You're right, Kevin. You're the underdog, and you should be. And here's why: the stats you just point out.
No. What I'm saying is that we love what we're hearing from Kevin Love because he sounds ready to step up. I'm saying to you, you're going to have to. And if you are Draymond and the rest of the crew, you're looking forward to going up against LeBron. You're going up against Kyrie. You may not have, or he may not have acquired the attention that normally you would think that somebody like him would require. He has been hitting three-point shots. You got to pay attention to him. But I'm just talking about somebody like Draymond Green who's looking for an excuse to try to mess with you mentally. Kevin Love showed, and at times in his career, in his young career in Cleveland, that you could get inside his head to some degree, which was why you had guys, at least the first go-round, that didn't have that much confidence in him. That's not the case anymore. They have loads of confidence in him, and he's earned it, and he deserves it. The flip side is Draymond is not just a master player. Draymond is the kind of guy that will try to play head games with you. He's got to be ready for it.
You don't want to get Draymond too fired up, though, because we know what can happen with that.
Whoa. Wait a minute. Now, we don't know that. Remember, the technical foul, the flagrant foul that he got, it was the accumulation of those flagrant fouls that got him suspended. He doesn't have that problem in this year's playoffs. So if he gets, I don't know how many flagrants he's had in these playoffs, but I don't think he's on the verge of getting suspended, with some bogus call from the league office who implemented it retroactively.
The emotions are always a concern with him.
Let's get back to the Kevin Love of it all, by the way. If a couple of years ago, someone would have told you Draymond Green will be considered the better player than Kevin Love, let's say 3 years ago, 3 years from now, you'd laugh. No way, right? But the finals, in the crucible of playoffs competition, you find out what's what. You find out who's actually excellent.
Damn.
Not the empty calorie player I referred to before who can run up big numbers on a mediocre team, but a great player who can fit into a championship team or even stand out on a championship team. That's what Draymond Green has turned into. That's what Kevin Love is trying to become. And with these kind of statements, if you're a Kevin Love fan, you have to be buoyed by these kind of statements because it sounds like he's up for the challenge. It sounds that way at least.
I just don't see, I hear you, Stephen A. I hear that Draymond feeds on everything. I don't see any downside in what Kevin's saying. I don't see any downside in Kevin saying, what, we're the underdogs, the defending champs? I don't see any downside in Kevin believing himself. I don't know how Draymond spins that and gets in Kevin's head. I don't know how.
Let me end it by saying this. Here's how Draymond spins it. Oh, so you guys said this is me imitating Draymond up here.
Yeah.
Oh, so you talking now. Oh, so you in the mix now. Oh, so you think you really do think you one of those big three. Huh? Oh, because you did this against Boston and Toronto and Indiana before that. You don't know who you going up against? We're glad you opened your mouth. Welcome to the finals, Kevin Love. Let's go. Now, I think Kevin Love's going to be ready for that challenge. All I'm saying to you is that if you Draymond, that's how you look at stuff like that. Oh, so here you come. You've been hiding for a little while now. We didn't see you in last year's NBA Finals, really. But here you come now. Really? Let's go. Let's go. Oh, trust me, Draymond can find a way. Draymond is one of those dudes that's a master at this stuff. He can find a way to sit up there and find any little thing to incite himself to mess with you. And Kevin Love has to be ready for that. That's all I'm saying.
All right, gentlemen, let's leave it there, because coming up, Kevin Durant has become the NBA's enemy #1 after joining the Super Team Warriors. Are these finals a must-win for the sake of his legacy? And stay right where you are, because up next, we'll tackle LeBron James' legacy, where he eclipsed Jordan with a win over this Warriors squad.
Wendy's Double Stack is...
This is crazy. They don't have nothing else to talk about. They just straight talk about the finals right now. They don't got nothing else to talk about. That's crazy. Don't nobody care about nothing else except these finals. And rightfully so, these finals are going to be very, very cool.
finals apiece. You know, so being able to
Made Bar and Grill. When we're in Cleveland, we'll be at the Hofbrauhaus House. We'll have special guest giveaways. First come, first served. Our Oakland show's doors open 5:30 on Pacific time, so make sure you show up early, pack the house. We hope to see you down there. LeBron made history this season, leading his second team to a 4th straight final, something that's never been done, and he's well aware of how this year's finals will affect his legacy.
It's going to be great for my legacy once I'm done playing the game. We look back on the game and we say, oh, you know, this guy went to 3 straight finals, 4 straight finals, 5, 6, whatever, 7. I think it's great to be talked about, see what I was able to accomplish as an individual. You know, you talk about, you know, longevity and being able to, you know, just play at a high level for a long period of time, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to do that and be a part of 2 franchises that able to take 2 franchises to 4 finals apiece. You know, so. And no one's ever done that either.
Max, how much will a win help King James' legacy?
It'll help it a lot. Again, by an order of magnitude in terms of where he's positioned at the end of his career. Because he gets to slay the monster. Michael Jordan, the guy to whom he will be compared, or he hopes he will be compared when all is said and done, Michael Jordan never had to slay the monster, because by the time he won his first title against the Lakers, Kareem was gone, and then Worthy got hurt early in the series. And so the Lakers weren't quite the monster. And when he beat other teams in the playoffs or in the final 60-win Magic team that had swept them the year before, Jordan didn't have his legs. He had just gotten back toward the end of the season when they got swept. It's not like the Magic team with Shaq and Penny had just won the title. They'd been destroyed in the previous finals. So they were a great team, but the monster that Jordan couldn't overcome, no. And then you look out west, and Seattle and Utah had some monster teams, but again, they hadn't won a title. So really, the Bulls were the monster. And so never being the underdog, Jordan never had to do it. Now, you can say, well, that speaks to Jordan's greatness, that when he was screwed up, he was never the underdog, and that's true, and probably that'll wind up being the winning argument. But, objectively, he also never had to face a team as good as this Warriors team, a 73-win team that swapped out Harrison Barnes, replaced him with Kevin freaking Durant. That's an invincible kind of squad. And so if LeBron James can somehow, after doing it last year down 3-1 coming back on him, do it again the very next year against the new and improved Warriors team, that's something that Jordan never had to do, that Kobe never had to do, that Bird or Magic never really had to do. Not quite like that. And so it will improve his standing in NBA history to the point where I believe he will be recognized in the modern era as the only, at least, non-big who can be compared to Jordan. And ultimately, as time passes, the debate will come down to Jordan and LeBron. If he wins this series, no less than that is what he can attain immediately.
Go ahead, Will.
Well, a couple different points. I'll tell you how much it helps, Mac. It's not by an order of magnitude. If LeBron James wins this final, it will help his argument for greatest of all time against Jordan by 33%. That's exactly the number. Because he needs to win 6 championships. He's at 3. He has 3 to go. So 1 down, 2 more afterwards. If LeBron James gets to 6, the 4 that he lost won't be held against him. You don't penalize someone for getting there. It's the Tom Brady, Joe Montana argument when it was won. Does Tom Brady somehow get penalized for winning the AFC Championship game? No, he doesn't. He's been there more than Montana was there. Now, the problem with LeBron versus Jordan is the winning percentage is off. But if he can get to 6 and 4, it's all a plus at that point. It's all working in his favor, the wins and the appearances. I think your argument that Jordan never had to face a juggernaut or a monster squad or a super team or whatever words you use, I think that's off. I mean, Malone and Stockton, 2 top 50 players of all time, Hall of Famers, the reason they weren't known as the super team is because of Michael Jordan. The reason they didn't have championships was because of Michael Jordan. It was because of the Bulls. It's like, in this scenario, you're giving LeBron credit for the existence of the super team that he lost to. You see, if he beat them both the way Jordan did, you wouldn't be calling the Warriors a super team. You beat them the first year. You can't discredit Jordan for keeping the Jazz from ever having a title. You got to credit him for that.
But it wasn't strictly Jordan. Jordan was gone for 2 years. Hakeem won those 2 chips, not Malone and Stockton. They were great teams, don't get me wrong, which is why I called them that. But they clearly were not this Warriors team.
Well, the thing about it is this. To answer the question directly about whether or not it will help LeBron's legacy, of course it will. Because Kevin Durant is on that squad, and Steph Curry, a 2-time league MVP, is on that squad. Because the Splash Brothers are universally recognized as the greatest shooting backcourt that we have seen. The only issue that I have with all of this is that we don't take into account the road less traveled by LeBron en route to confrontations against Golden State. Indiana, Toronto, Boston. I mean, when you look at some of these teams he's had to go against throughout the years in the Eastern Conference, they haven't been, I mean, they've been competitive, but they haven't been the monsters that had to be knocked off. When we think about the 76ers in the 80s and the Detroit Pistons in the 80s and the way Boston and LA were so dominant and the fact that they ultimately got knocked off in 83 where somebody interrupted the proceedings, or the Pistons in 88 and 89 interrupted the proceedings and warded off the Jordan era by at least 3 years, beating him in the playoffs the 3 years leading up to him ultimately capturing the championship, in 91. Those are the type of things that we have to take into consideration in the 90s. Jordan and the road that he had to take to the finals before there was an LA, Portland, Phoenix, Utah twice, and Seattle. The road to the finals, particularly considering the rules of the game, combined with the roughhouse tactics, combined with the Knicks and the Pacers and how all of these teams look, etc., etc. Those are battles that LeBron, those scars that LeBron didn't have to endure. It's almost like he went to the finals relatively fresh compared to the people that we're comparing him against. And I think that needs to be taken into consideration. But his legacy will definitely be helped by beating this team, no doubt about it.
No question. We will leave it there, gentlemen. Will Kane, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for letting me be casual.
Bye, jacketless Kane.
All right. Michael Vick was a hero in Atlanta for a long time, but should he actually retire as a Falcon? And did you see this video? This MMA fighter got smacked by his mother in the octagon. We'll react to that next.
Ooh. Oh, man. I was going to check another base, but to be honest, I don't even feel like it right now, so I'm about to log off. I'm just let this load up. Oh, man. Alright, y'all. Yeah, I'm about to hop on up out of here. We'll get this cannon going. I can do this gear up. Oh, I can't do it yet. Alright, y'all. I am out. I'll be back. I'll do them attacks later. Goodbye.